If you've ever gotten tested for COVID, you know that it usually involves sticking a cotton swab up your nostril for a little while. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary. And apparently, Jesus hates that. Who knew? Okay, here's the story. Do you remember how a whole bunch of conservative Christians demanded religious exemptions to COVID vaccine mandates? They claimed the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were created using cells that came from fetuses that were aborted decades ago. So by getting vaccinated, they were somehow endorsing abortion, and that would make the baby Jesus cry or something. It never made any sense because it wasn't supposed to make sense. They just knew that saying they were Christian would allow them to bypass any rules that were in place to protect everybody. To be clear, the vaccines are not anti Christian or pro abortion or anything like that. They're scientific miracles. But they are only effective if enough people get their shots so the virus can't spread. And in the United States, a whole bunch of very dumb people with no medical excuses have not gotten their shots. Those religious exemptions flourished, and it made our collective immune response much weaker than it needed to be, which is one reason we are still seeing new COVID variants infecting the public. That religious excuse actually exposed so much hypocrisy because the same cells that helped create the COVID vaccines were also used in vaccines that prevent shingles and chickenpox and hepatitis A. And you never really heard anyone demanding religious exemptions for those because it was never political. Those same fetal cell lines are also used to make Tylenol, Pepto-Bismol, Sudafed, Motrin, and Tums. So unless all those Christians also reject Tylenol when they have a headache, they're just making stuff up because they don't understand or respect science. They are hypocrites. And it was always stupid to allow religious exemptions to vaccine mandates. Conservative Christians, and it's almost always Christians, should not have some right to put other people's health in danger because of their own ignorance. And now, it's getting worse. Because a bunch of San Diego cops who already received religious exemptions getting vaccinated for COVID are now demanding that they also be exempt from being checked for COVID, claiming that the swab tests that go up your nose somehow violate their Christian faith. I'll give you a second right now to see if you could figure out their justification for this. I mean, there isn't one. But what do you even think they argued? We know the answer to that question because they had to explain themselves in writing. When they wanted the exemption to the vaccine, staffers employed by the city of San Diego had to fill out a form that stated that a sincerely held religious belief could be a valid reason to avoid the shots. But the form made clear that those who did not get vaccinated had to be regularly tested for COVID, which at least made sense. I mean, if you want to put your health in jeopardy, that's on you. But if you're testing positive for COVID, even if you're asymptomatic, you're putting everyone else's health in jeopardy. So you have to either get vaccinated or get tested regularly. It's not that complicated. Well, a reporter for KPBS obtained some of those forms and found that about 10% of police staff who already had religious exemptions to the vaccine specifically said they could not be tested for COVID because that also violated their beliefs. And they had to explain how. They claimed the swabs contained something called ethylene oxide, which is a known carcinogen. It could cause cancer, they said, and they didn't want that in their bodies. Except ethylene oxide is not actually on the swabs. The The chemical is used as a gas to sterilize the swabs, and that's it. It's not like there are drops of it that you are sticking up your nose. We've used this chemical to sterilize things for so long that if it caused cancer, we would absolutely have known that by now. But it doesn't. And yet some Christian cops are writing things like this on their forms. My beliefs stand for keeping my body clean and free from such unnecessary drugs and chemicals into my body. Right. How much you want to bet the same guys drink a beer every once in a while? Or eat processed foods? KPBS also noted, the phrase, "I trust in God's perfect design of my body," was used 19 times by officers seeking the religious exemption, according to records reviewed by KPBS. And 4 officers repeated verbatim that, "Because of my deeply held Christian beliefs, I trust in God's perfect design of my body, and that my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The COVID-19 vaccine and the nasal swab test with ethylene oxide are an unneeded introduction of drugs/chemicals into my body." They said that verbatim, which suggests they're getting the language from the same source because they're too dumb to understand what they're talking about. And here's the thing. God never said, "Thou shalt not use ethylene oxide." It's just a made-up excuse these Christians are using because they are selfish people who don't give a damn about infecting those around them. And they know being Christian, and not, say, Muslim or Hindu or atheist, gives them this privilege. Not only do they not care about public health, they believe their Christian faith should shield them from even being tested for the disease. I think it seems fair to ask how many drugs or chemicals the same cops routinely put into their bodies when they're sick, because it's not like they just get magically healed or avoid sickness altogether. Plus, as any honest Christian who has ever coughed, worn glasses, stubbed their toes, or felt soreness in their legs could tell you, God's perfect design is far from perfect. KPBS says the city is trying to accommodate these insane requests, but for now, these Christians remain on the job despite no one knowing if they are walking health hazards. Some cops literally cited the Bible in justification of their ridiculous requests. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verses 16 and 17 states, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy that person. For God's temple is sacred, and you together are that temple." In addition, 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verses 19 and 20 states, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." As one religion professor explained to KPBS, however, that section refers to sexual immorality, not medicine or safety protocols. Have those cops ever received stitches? Do they have tattoos? How would those things be any different than a swab test, even by their own definition? Even if they sincerely believed otherwise, there is nothing un-Christian about making a small sacrifice on your end to create a much larger benefit for your community. That's called being a good member of society. There's simply no legitimate religious reason to refuse to get tested for COVID. These Christians just think their faith gives them some kind of right to put others at risk. And no one in their lives has the courage to tell them they are arrogant jerks. The correct thing for the city to do in this instance would be to fire those officers. They're not complying with extremely basic requirements that do not seriously infringe upon their religious freedom. The accommodation they're requesting isn't even close to reasonable. And that means they are a danger to the very people they've sworn to protect. And because the public is literally obligated to interact with police officers if they're approached by cops for any reason, knowing whether a cop could be infected with COVID is pretty damn important. As I make this video, the city has not taken action on these 35 cops and counting who have demanded swab exemptions. For the sake of the public, let's hope city officials take action soon and just let those cops find new jobs. They're clearly not capable of doing the ones they have.